Hello and welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy, and always a great pleasure to be amongst my friends on the House of Wellness team. That is Joe Stanley, Jacqui, Felgate, Dr Nick Carr. Good to see you, as always.
Good to see you, Darcy.
Oh, and today is going to be a tasty one because we are focusing on one of my favourite things, food.
Did you know that by the age of 82, the average person consumes 90,000 meals? That's a lot of deciding what to cook for dinner.
Well, it'd be interesting to know, Jack, how many of those meals are actually good for us, because with obesity on the rise around the world, and now in Australia, over 60% of adults are classified as overweight or obese.
Something I need to address, Nick, and I've declared this a few times before on the House of Wellness, my obsession with the potato, Jack, whether it's scallop, roasted, definitely fries. And I was a bit disturbed to read that the humble chip has been linked to higher rates of depression and anxiety.
Yes, I saw that too, Darcy. Are you okay?
Well, I'm not now, as it turns out.
But it's true that regularly eating fried food, and particularly the fried potato, correlates to a significant rise in mental health issues.
Well, you've got to be a little bit careful, Joe. These are preliminary findings. It might just be that people are feeling sad, anxious or depressed, actually turn to fast food for comfort. So it's a bit of that sort of chicken or egg thing, though it might be a good idea to have your chicken grilled, not fried, just to be safe.
Nice.
Well, on the flip side, though, Nick, seafood's getting the big tick again, and the research is saying really good for our heart and our kidneys.
Yes, Sydney researchers have conducted the largest analysis of the health benefits of certain fatty acids in seafood, and it turns out that those that eat the most have a lower risk of developing chronic kidney disease.
And just on chronic kidney disease, 1 in 11 people right around the world suffer it. So that's hundreds of millions of people. And Dr Nick, that makes those findings particularly interesting.
Too right, Jack, because fish like salmon, tuna are high in omega-3 fatty acids, the so-called good fats. And Darcy, you mentioned it's good for your heart health, we know that, but it's now been shown that these fats reduce the decline in kidney function, which is really important.
Well, it's great news we're getting educated on the things that we should be eating more of, but for a lot of people, they have to think regularly about what they can't eat, including young Declan, who is one of 2% of Australians that have to live every day with a peanut allergy.
For the last 5 years, Declan has lived in fear of peanuts.
I don't like peanuts at all.
After eating peanut butter on toast, Declan suffered an anaphylactic episode, sending his mum into a spin.
His lips were all swollen, his eyes were swollen, they were bloodshot, and it was clear that he was having an allergic reaction. So I quickly rang the nurse on call. And she said, this is a medical emergency. You need to go to the nearest emergency department. It's an hour away. Get in the car now and go.
The family was on holiday in remote New South Wales. Declan was just 4 years old.
It was pretty scary. I was very lucky I had my mum with me at the time. So she sat in the back seat with him, monitoring him, because we knew that if it was anaphylaxis, he might start to have difficulties breathing. It was a pretty full-on experience. You are Dec, count out your usual amount and then you can have them in the front room.
Declan's 9 now, and life has changed a lot, especially his relationship with peanuts.
Beautiful. Off you go, Doc. Declan is in remission.
That's thanks to the Murdoch Children's Research Institute that's developed a radical new treatment called oral immunotherapy.
The way we administer the treatment is to feed a child who's allergic to peanut. Of course, this can cause reactions, so we start at very, very tiny doses, less than 1,000th of a peanut, really, and then we build up the dose over time, in our case, over 4 months, roughly, and we get to a top maintenance dose of 2,000 milligrams peanut protein, which is about 20 peanuts.
Professor Mimi Tang led the team in the world-first trial, designed to build up tolerance by gradually exposing the child to the allergy.
Once they get to that top dose, they continue each day on this dose until a total of 18 months treatment is completed. And that's the treatment course. It's an 18-month therapy of taking a dose every day of the peanut protein.
The children are then tested to see if they're in remission.
Children are thought to be in remission if they pass a diagnostic peanut challenge after they've been off treatment for 8 weeks. So at that point, we are basically saying, we can't show that you've got peanut allergy even though you've been off treatment for 8 weeks.
Declan was one of 200 children aged between 1 and 10 who took part in the 18-month trial, with extraordinary results.
We were very excited to see that half of the children that received this treatment were able to achieve this remission endpoint. But more importantly, another quarter of children who didn't get to the remission endpoint actually were fully desensitised against a standard serve of peanut. Desensitisation is when you increase the amount of peanut someone is able to eat before they have a reaction, but it's a temporary protection. So in order for the kids to stay protected, they have to keep going on a daily dose of treatment.
For the 25% who responded to desensitisation, it's peace of mind for parents if their child accidentally consumes peanuts.
Children who received therapy had a very significant improvement in quality of life. And I think that's probably the most important outcome, because that's a measure of what the benefit is to patients in the real world.
And as for Declan?
He is able to have peanuts as regularly as he wants. He doesn't like peanuts, but just to make sure that he's still in remission, we regularly give him peanuts, and for us that means about 10 chocolate peanut M&Ms a week, and we've not had a reaction since.
I'm very relieved now I'm in remission because it goes with M&Ms and I like M&Ms, so it tastes good, so I'm happy with that.
Incredible research being done once again by Australian researchers, this time from Melbourne's Murdoch Children's Research Institute.
And Dr Nick, nuts, milk and eggs are the most common allergy triggers in Aussie kids?
Yeah, and now sesame, you know, there's lovely little seeds on the bun. They're under the spotlight. And the US has now come in line with Australia to make labelling sesame as a potential allergen compulsory on packaging.
Well, our foray into food continues next. We share the Melbourne innovation that'll get more fibre into your diet without you even knowing it. That's up next.
Well, one of the biggest food trends in recent years has been the plant-based diet, and Dr Nick, more and more people are reducing their meat intake or ditching it altogether.
It's true, Jo, because around about 2.5 million Australians are vegetarian and 6% fully vegan. But for people like you and I who still like our steak and our seafood platter, we're increasingly interested in sustainability and the farming practices.
Absolutely. And I have to say, in recent years, public enemy number one at dinner time for me and for many people has been the humble carb, OK? Now, please tell me, is bread and pasta that much of a threat to my waistline?
Well, they're good and bad carbs. So they're carbs in things like cakes and biscuits. Not so great. You might want to limit those. But there's also carbs in things like grains, whole cereals, fruits and veggies. And they're also stuffed full of fibre, and we want heaps of that.
Well, most Aussie adults actually don't get enough fibre in our diet, but researchers out of Melbourne's RMIT University have come up with an innovative solution that's going to help all of us add more fibre to our food. It lowers our cholesterol, boosts our gut health and reduces our risk of everything from diabetes to cancer. But despite its many benefits, most of us aren't getting nearly enough fibre in our diets.
Based on the Food and Drug Administration recommendation, we need about 25 to 30 grams of fibre per day, but unfortunately most of us don't take that required amount of fibre.
Fortunately, packing more fibre into your favourite foods could soon be a piece of cake. Food scientists at RMIT have found a way to modify the molecular properties of starches such as wheat and corn, changing the way these substances are processed in the body.
Instead of actually coming to our body and producing glucose, it acts as a source of dietary fibre. So it actually gives us the health benefits that natural fibre actually is basically giving us. Fibre coming from, let's say, wheat bran.
The resulting supplement is a powdery substance called Fibre X, which can easily be added to just about any food to increase its fibre content by up to 20%.
Fibres, when we put them into food, they've got negative impacts on food quality in terms of texture, in terms of taste. But this Fibre X is invisible. So when we put it into, let's say, bread or cake, we don't really see any negative impact on that, and we call it invisible fibre. So our hope is that this technology will be acquired by Australian companies or international companies, and hopefully we see thousands of tons of fibrex being produced annually and put into food, and hopefully many customers and consumers can actually get the benefit of this fibrex in their diet.
As a scientist, I'm really happy to see my research can be translated into application by food industry, and I can see the product be commercialized and be used by people, which can improve the general health and well-being.
Well, that's a lot like hiding veggies in kids' food, Jack, and RMIT have found a way for adults in a similar way in terms of fibre.
Well, would you believe that one Aussie vet is doing this for our dogs, but get this, the secret ingredient, the hidden ingredient, it's maggots.
Well, Jack, it's dog food made from dried fly larvae, can you believe it? It's actually got two important things going for it. One, it's environmentally friendly, and the other thing, it's packed with protein.
And it could also be good for dogs with allergies, say those dogs that can't have red meat.
I've got a dog called Dennis,
We know Dennis,
who is an 8-year-old staffy. He's going to eat anything. Dried fly larvae, you name it, he will consume it.
OK, just to pivot on a completely different topic now, I'm looking forward very much to hearing your interview with Ariarne Titmus.
What a superstar she is. And Jack, who will forget Ariarne Titmus's performance at the Tokyo Olympic Games?
Amazing.
She was the hero gold medal superstar. And up next, we're going to find out about how Ariarne is continuing to inspire Australians right after this. Joe, I was diagnosed with celiac disease a little over 20 years ago, which means you need to avoid food containing gluten. So you'd think things like breads and pasta would be easy, but what I found out more than 20 years ago is what a nightmare it is in terms of sauces and additives. There's gluten in things that you've never even thought of. The good news is it is a whole lot easier now.
And much easier to eat out as well, because most menus serve gluten-free option, as well as vegetarian and vegan, which, of course, me being plant-based, you know, I'd love that.
Yeah, that's good for you, Joe. We're in sync with how we're going at the moment.
That's right. However, do you know, 1 in 70 Aussies have celiac disease, but a lot more than that have given up gluten.
Yeah, there's a brilliant gluten-free beer around now too, Joe. So the news is good for those that have gluten intolerance, but celiac disease is very different to gluten intolerance or those that are trying to avoid gluten. The doctor's Carr will explain that a bit better than I am right now, a little later on the House of Wellness. But up to 1 in 4 Australians try to avoid gluten at some particular stage throughout the year, including one of Australia's most loved and treasured sportswomen.
Ariarne Titmus is the current Olympic 200-metre and 400-metre freestyle champion. And who can forget those incredible wins in Tokyo?
Just makes you smile, doesn't it? Yeah. Remember her coach, Dean Boxall, going cocoa bananas when she won on the poolside deck. What a superstar Ariarne is. And at the moment, she's got a new goal, and that is helping other gluten-intolerant Australians go for gold. You've achieved so much at such a young age. Growing up in Tassie, the most unlikely place in the world to develop a world champion Olympic gold medalist as a swimmer. How did that happen?
Always had pools in the backyard, don't know why with the weather, but yeah, just always swimming, and decided just to sign up for a local swimming club when I was 7, and it was pretty much the same time the Beijing Olympics were on, and I saw Stephanie Rice win 3 golds.
Oh, wow.
And new into swimming, I was like, that's gonna be me. And that's really where it started, and I just loved it like more than anything.
And you've come in an era of swimming where you've got extraordinary rivals. You can't mention Arnie without Katie Ledecky, and you've had a great respect for your opponents too. You've never seen them as anything apart from good for you. Is that still the case?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Katie kind of paved the way for women's swimming, and I guess I learnt from how she raced and tried to transition that into my swimming. With competitors as well, when I'm behind the blocks, certainly they are my competitor, but as soon as the race is over, I really just look to them as the person they are, because I value that more than who they are as an athlete, and I hope people see that the same with me too.
Now, Arnie, clearly diet's a huge part of your life, and you need to be strict for you being an athlete and a professional. You're conscious of what you eat all the time. Then you add in a food intolerance, and finding out you're gluten-free. Can you tell us about that journey for you?
It has been challenging, especially as an athlete. You try to eat quite specific for your training and to fuel as best as you can. The tiniest bit of gluten can cause me to become quite bloated, quite fatigued, which is challenging as an athlete, especially as a swimmer, being in the pool all the time in your togs, and you don't want to, you know, look like that as well. But for me, I think it's just better to avoid it altogether and feel a lot better within myself.
Well, living gluten-free for medical reasons is something you and I share in common, Arnie, and most people think, OK, just don't have a pasta or bread, but it's a bit more complex than that, isn't it? There's gluten in sauces or hidden things that you didn't realise that were there. How challenging has that been for you to try and stay healthy and train well?
I think it's one thing to try and avoid it for training, but also you and I are people who probably do other things like go out and socialise and things like that, and I think that's probably the most challenging part, especially eating out in restaurants where a meal may say that it's gluten-free, but it still might come into contact with something and there might be a bit of cross-contamination in the kitchen. There's actually one incident. We had the World Championships in Korea in 2019 and we were staying in a village and there was a lot of food that had sauces and deep fried, and I was just too scared to really touch anything, and so I was living off pretty much plain white rice, baby tomatoes and fried eggs, breakfast, lunch and dinner for 10 days straight. It worked. I mean, I became world champion for the first time, but it's times like that when it can be quite challenging and you don't want to run the risk of accidentally consuming it, so you just avoid pretty much anything that could contain gluten.
Congratulations partnering with GluteGuard to raise awareness for a lot of people that are living with a gluten-free diet and that stress of going out to restaurants or being away from home and constantly concerned about whether or not you're going to have a really painful and upsetting experience. Tell us about why you're so passionate about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of us out there. 1 in 4 Australians living with a gluten-free diet, which is a lot more common than I actually realised. GluteGuard is the only clinically proven product you can get that is shown to protect against the symptoms of accidental gluten ingestion. I think for a lot of people out there that are gluten-free, it means they can live without the stress of the symptoms of gluten and go out with their friends, go on holidays, go travelling, in my case, train the best that I can without the worry of gluten interfering with my life.
It's a great message to pass on to people. I know you're incredibly goal-focused and driven, and World Championships are coming up. Is there ever a moment where you think, "Whoa, this is getting hard," or do you still love it?
There are always days where you kind of wish you could roll back over and go back to sleep. But no, still love it. I still have the passion for it, and people have actually asked me, like, you've achieved everything on paper that you would have ever wanted to achieve in your sport. Like, why are you still swimming? Well, I just feel within myself that I have more to give. I come from a town of 90,000 people down in Tassie, and now I'm here living this incredible life and swimming on the world stage. So I think it's just cool to see kids grow up with a dream and know that they can actually do that too if they work for it.
Dr. Nick, there's a real focus on food on today's show, one of my favourite topics. But one of the things to come out of the pandemic is that now we're actually cooking and staying at home more instead of eating out.
Well, we all did a lot of home cooking during lockdowns, of course, and one of my favourite pandemic projects was Korean cooking.
Of course it was.
Anything with kimchi. But it seems that the home cooking trend has continued.
Well, nothing beats a beautiful home-cooked meal, especially one that takes you back to your childhood.
And there seems to be a New York restaurant that agrees with you because they're now employing grandmothers from around the world to cook some of their favourite and best recipes to share.
All of the grandmothers that cook at Enoteca Maria, regardless of their nationality, are called nonna. What's your favourite nonna recipe?
Well, it has to be something Italian, so I'm going pork ragu with fennel, so lots of garlic, onion, fennel, pork sausage, tomatoes, sizzling away for a couple of hours.
Oh, you're making me very hungry, Dr. Nick. But of course, when it comes to home cooking, it's also about the produce that we use. So we've sent Hines along to the Prahran Market in search of some weird and wonderful veggies.
I'm here at the Prahran Market where I am on a mission to find weird and wonderful fruit and veg. I'm desperate to get my hands on a quandong. Let's see what we can find. What is the weirdest vegetable you've got for me?
Today, these ones. These have already been dried up, but that's a really big one. It's called a New Guinea bean, and you chop it up really fine on a barbecue. This is the normal size like that.
John, do many people ask for these?
No.
Justin, What is this?
This is Asian pear. We import from China. It is more sweeter than the Aussie one and more juicy as well.
Do you have many people asking for it?
No, people usually they like the Aussie one.
What would you do with it?
Just wash it and peel the skin off, and we can just eat it straight up.
No quandong. Iris, what's your favourite exotic fruit?
Cha-cha fruits.
Cha-cha sounds more like a dance move than a fruit. What is it exactly?
It's a little bit sweet and sour, or sometimes it's really sweet. Just press it,
Yeah.
lie around.
Oh!
See, you can see inside.
Oh, wow. I think if you hadn't opened that for me, I would have bit straight into the skin on the outside.
Not the skin, on the inside.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
It's so soft.
soft and like a mangosteen.
Yeah, and it's sweet, but you're right. It's got a little bit of sour as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Got anything else different for me?
What about these?
A radish.
No, these are actually a beetroot. They are a target beetroot.
How do they differ to the big, chunky red one we got here?
Okay, so these are a heritage and an heirloom variety, and they have a sweeter flavour.
We hear that word heirloom in front of things like tomatoes and now beetroot. What does that actually mean?
So it means that it's an old-fashioned variety and it's not edited.
Have you used it in any recipes yourself?
I did a kind of a beetroot carpaccio situation with some basil and some garlic, and that was delicious.
Andrew, I'm all over your button and the brown. What other exotic mushrooms have you got here for me?
Mate, we've got a whole world of exotic mushrooms here. Everything from a range of oysters, you have salmon oyster here, through to cloudy wood here.
Any risk that if I eat any of these, I'm going to turn into a fungi zombie?
Oh, you can only hope, mate.
This one looks a little weird. What is it?
The salmon oyster, otherwise known as the pink oyster, has beautiful colouring. They do have a sort of an earthy, nutty flavour, but they also taste remarkably like salmon.
Now, the lion's mane looks like a brain.
Yeah, they reckon there are certain compounds in there that help to promote neurogenesis. So you're basically feeding neuron production and regulation.
Andrew, I've got to ask, have you got any quandong?
Quandongs? Mate, you got to be dreaming.
All right, I'll keep looking.
Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia. It affects up to 1 in 10 Australians over the age of 65. While the cause is unknown, a key risk factor is the inevitable ageing process. Alzheimer's disease damages neural connections in the brain due to a build-up of the toxic proteins amyloid and tau, which stop the brain from passing signals properly. This causes memory failure, which leads to the common symptoms of the disease, such as difficulty finding the right words for everyday things or losing the thread of a conversation. Early research showed that nutrients such as omega-3, choline and uridine were important for the formation of brain connections, and that patients with Alzheimer's disease often had lower levels of some of these key nutrients. This led to the development of the medical nutrition drink called Suvinade. A recent study following patients with an early stage of Alzheimer's disease called mild cognitive impairment revealed that Suvinade slowed the progression of memory and cognitive decline by 60% when taken daily for 3 years. Alzheimer's disease can become more common as we age, but it's not a normal part of ageing, and we can take steps to reduce its impact on our lives.
I think we're all on the search for healthy food, Jack and Joe, that isn't short on flavour. And excess sugar, we know, has been on the no-go list for some time, except if you're a bee buzzing it around London, Joe.
Oh, look, we absolutely love bees here. We love the way they work. But get this, scientists in London have trained bees to solve puzzles using sugar as a reward.
OK, so I'm across this. So scientists got a box that had a rotating lid and inside was a sugar solution. So the bees managed to effectively solve the puzzle by getting to the sugar solution, but then they demonstrated social learning. So they passed the information onto their buddies so they could get to the sugar solution too.
Proving that bees are very clever and they succumb to peer group pressure as well.
It's a brilliant story, that one. I love it. Now, I've shared before that I have celiac disease, Joe and Jack, and it's still a bit of confusion out there around what it means, celiac disease and living with gluten intolerance. To shed some light on that is Dr Nick and Isabel Carr.
Hi and welcome to Medicine, Past, Present and Future. My name's Dr Nick and I'm the past.
And my name's Dr Isabel and I'm the future.
And together we're
the present. So today we're going to be talking about celiac disease and gluten intolerance. Really interesting topics.
Yeah, just before we talk about celiac and gluten intolerance, a bit of history.
Of course, Dr Nick, you always want to do the history.
The past, remember. But to me this is really important because when I was a junior doctor, celiac was a rare disease. We only really saw these thin, anemic, diarrheal kids, and they were the only ones we knew who had celiac. And then it all changed about 25, 30 years ago because we developed a blood test where we could detect celiac.
Yeah, that's right. And now we know the figures are somewhere for celiac disease between 1 in 80 of the general population.
Yeah, it's much more common than we ever thought. I mean, I still remember my first patient who walked in and said, "Oh, Doc, I need the blood test for celiac." And I looked at him, superior medical person, "Oh, what do you need a blood test for?" And he said, "Well, my sister's been diagnosed." And I had no idea a blood test existed, but he was quite right. He should have the blood test, and he came out positive. He had no symptoms at all. So, Dr. Isabel, why was it important for this man to know he had celiac when he had no symptoms?
Well, so when we think of celiac disease, often what we think of is, having a bit too much pasta, something like that, and feeling quite uncomfortable. That's actually not celiac disease, that's gluten intolerance. And these are very different things. The difficulty with celiac disease is it's actually an autoimmune disease.
Oh, hang on. Getting technical on us, come on.
Sorry.
What does that mean?
Essentially what that means is some of the cells within your own body are attacking themselves. It's like there's a mini war raging inside your gut.
OK, so what can celiac disease, the true disease, do to you?
So with celiac disease, the true celiac disease, what it does is it can increase your risk of cancer. So things like bowel cancer. And for women, it can also increase your risk of infertility to pretty serious complications.
So how then do we tell the difference between celiac and gluten sensitivity?
Exactly. So you said there's a blood test. Now, may I remind you that blood test is a screening test. It's not a diagnostic test. If you are to be diagnosed with celiac disease, we need to do it on what we call a biopsy. We actually have to take a tiny piece of your gut and look at it under a microscope.
So this is when someone has the garden hose put down in their tummy and a piece taken away?
That's right. We grab the hose pipe from out the back and we shove it down and then we get... No, it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Gastroscopy, that's what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Okay, so you cannot have celiac disease diagnosed without a gastroscopy and biopsy. Really, really important.
That's right. It's also really important with these diseases to do this in conjunction with conversations with your doctor. So, for example, in order to be diagnosed with celiac disease, you actually have to have been eating gluten for 6 weeks beforehand. Otherwise, if you have these tests, they may come out negative because you've got none of that damage.
Yeah. Really important point, isn't it, that if you avoid the gluten because it's making you feel lousy, when you have the test, it'll be negative, but that's wrong.
Exactly.
So you've got to be eating gluten before you test for celiac. Sounds a bit weird, but it's true. But gluten sensitivity, what does that mean?
The difference between gluten intolerance and celiac disease is with gluten intolerance, you don't actually get any of that intestinal damage. And that's a whole different kettle of fish.
And talking kettle of fish, that actually might not be a bad treatment if you are gluten intolerant. That's all we have time for today. Thank you, Dr. Isabel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nick.
Hydration equals health, and it's no different when it comes to beauty. The best makeup looks start with a great base. Only problem is we often forget our H2O. Hydrolyte Plus Collagen is rehydration supercharged. It relieves symptoms of dehydration, which we've all experienced, but also contains health benefits from the addition of vitamin C, zinc, and sustainably sourced hydrolyzed marine collagen. Beauty lovers rejoice because this combo supports skin hydration, helps improve skin elasticity and firmness. And my favourite, it helps support healthy hair and nails. Simply empty contents of 1 sachet into 200 millilitres of cold water and stir. With a pink grapefruit flavour, it's convenient and portable for rehydration on the inside and the outside.
Now, Jack, I know you and I do our fair share of home cooking, but I must confess I do enjoy ordering takeaway every now and then.
Oh, who doesn't? But I think it's about steering our kids away from the really processed stuff. We like a bit of Thai, but one thing that makes me feel a little guilty is the amount of waste, all of those plastic containers and the chopsticks that just sit in your drawer or you throw away.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one Singapore design company has come up with a brilliant solution. Top Value are recycling the single-use chopsticks from local restaurants and turning them into board games, home goods and furniture.
And the best thing, Jo, is they're doing it without using any chemicals or any water. And so far, they've recycled more than 100 million.
Isn't that awesome? Well, from helping our planet to protecting our children during cold and flu season, here's Hines and Zoe with some immunity-boosting treats.
Kids are very cute, Zoe, but I'm gonna say it. They are little germ spreaders. Let's look at the stats around the common cold and flu. Us adults, we get anywhere between 2 to 4 colds per year, but kids, anywhere between 5 to 10.
I believe you, Lukey. I hate it when my daughter Emily is sick, and that's why today our focus is on recipes to support kids' immune health.
Oh, and ones that they're actually going to eat. That is why I'm making my strawberry rochers. They're really easy and quick, and they encourage kids to get into the kitchen because, I mean, hello, chocolate.
My pear, banana, blueberry muffins are an absolute lunchbox winner. In fact, I'm prepared to say that they are not coming back from the schoolyard.
Oh, that is a pretty big call, Zoe. Now, talk me through some of the immune-supporting nutrients that you've got there.
Well, there's actually quite a few, Lukey. We've got zinc from the eggs, which helps to contribute to a normal, healthy immune system function. And the big one, vitamin C from blueberries.
This well-known antioxidant assists with relieving the duration and severity of common cold symptoms.
Western herbal medicine can also be really helpful. Elderberry for the sambucas tree is traditionally used in Western herbal medicine to clear respiratory tract mucus.
An echinacea from the daisy family is traditionally used in Western herbal medicine to help relieve the symptoms associated with mild upper respiratory tract infections and the common cold.
So many options to get kids out of bed, back into the playground.
It can also be found in supplement form in a watermelon and berry flavoured powder, suitable for ages 2 and up.
Sounds delicious, Lukey, just like our recipes, but we both know that these recipes, they're not for the kids.
No way. Like, we're pretending to make these for kids. Like, these are ours. Like, how many can we fit in our mouth all at once? All right, here we go. Hold on. Yeah. Is that your... Oh, my goodness. You're a machine. Get Nourished is brought to you by Bioceuticals Armour Force for Juniors. Supports healthy immune system function for children 2 years old and above. Speak to your pharmacist for specially formulated relief.
I've had vitiligo since I was probably between the age of 2 and 5. Vitiligo is characterised as an autoimmune disease that takes out the pigment in my skin, and therefore that's why I have 2 different shades of skin, or 2 different skin tones.
Growing up in Bangladesh before moving to Australia at the age of 8, Onella Muralidharan chose to embrace the very thing that made her stand out.
So when I was 7 years old, prior to coming to Australia, my mum tried a little bit of makeup on me to cover up the patchiness in my skin, and I just found it really heavy on my face. And as a 7-year-old, I just didn't want something, really heavy and really sort of kind of felt like it was weighing me down. And so I sort of made the decision to not cover up my vitiligo in any part of my body, and that sort of really helped me just be who I was from my childhood.
But while Onella's vitiligo has rarely bothered her, as a teenager she grew self-conscious about other aspects of her appearance.
From the age of 11, I've always felt like my weight has always been something that I was really insecure about, and my body size and the curves and everything like that. I didn't look like the people that were on TV, the people that were in magazines, the people that I saw represented everywhere. I always felt like I had to become a certain size or become a certain way in order to then feel like I belonged or feel like I had achieved something or to feel like I was good enough.
The body insecurities Onella experienced are shared by at least 1 in 4 young Australians, with social media and advertising identified as major causes. But after finishing high school, Onella worked hard to change her way of thinking.
A few years ago, I sort of really reflected on myself, and I realised that my skin didn't make me feel really insecure. I was able to go out without makeup and feel good, and so I sort of reflected on why can't I do that with the rest of my body, and it's something that really helped me gain confidence in other areas that I was insecure about, and realising that, you know, other people's opinions don't always matter, but taking in opinions from my friends and family that tell me that I'm beautiful and that, you know, I am, you know, worthy just as I am. Those are the type of things that I sort of really held on to and really kept in my mind when I looked at myself.
As she came to view herself through this empowering lens, Onella's self-confidence blossomed, leading to an exciting opportunity late last year.
My friends and family had actually told me that I should model, and it's something that I didn't believe that I could do. But I kind of entertained the thought, and I did a bit of Googling and I found Bella.
Bella Management is an Australia-wide modelling agency focused on increasing diversity within the fashion industry.
Fashion is a way to express yourself, and it should be fit for all sizes, all shapes and all ages, all nations as well. So we very much try and champion that at Bella Management, and we try and really push the boundaries in the industry so that everybody has a space. Annually, we put a call out for the Bella Unsigned Model Search, and we ask people around the nation to come forward if they feel they have what it takes to be in front of the camera and to go up in big campaigns that we're promoting. It doesn't matter what shape, what size you are, you have to be confident in front of the camera, you have to be willing to put yourself forward and have a really positive can-do attitude. When we saw Onella's application, we were blown away. Onella is an incredibly beautiful woman. The camera also takes her angles and everything about her skin and her body shape and her curves, and it creates an absolute masterpiece on the other side. She also is a fabulous pioneer of change. She's done a lot of work on herself internally as well as externally. She's hugely into pole dancing, so she's so fit. She emphasises all that is difference and all that is beauty and all that we should aspire to be.
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, easy.
Since entering the modelling scene less than a year ago, Onella has been snapped up by some of the country's biggest brands, including Sportsgirl, Bonds and Bras and Things.
I cannot fend people off her at the moment. She is in such demand.
For me, having my Instagram grow over the last few months and exponentially grow with something that I didn't expect has also come with a lot of DMs from people telling me that they find me inspiring because I'm showing my vitiligo and because I'm not covering it and because I'm not hiding it away. And I've actually had people who also have vitiligo from around the world message me, mums who their children have vitiligo and they hope that one day their children will grow up with the same confidence that I have, has really pushed me along and made what I do worth it. My hope with, you know, doing modelling and sort of representing my vitiligo is not just to affect the people with vitiligo, but for other people who have differences, the other people who feel alienated, to go, you know, that person looks different, but she's embracing it and she's happy, I can be the same. It's how it should have always been, is real people being represented, because ultimately every brand and every social media outlet is going out to real people, and that's who should be represented.
We're, of course, big on inclusion and diversity here at the House of Wellness. And Barbie and its parent company, Mattel, have taken some big strides in this area in recent years, including with their latest doll, Jo.
Absolutely. A new Barbie has been released representing a person living with Down syndrome. It features unique physical characteristics as well as it comes with clothing and accessories that each have significance.
And this is a story really close to my heart, Jo, because my mum spent her whole life working with people with Down syndrome. And Mattel, the toy company, they work really closely with America's National Down Syndrome Society to get the doll just right. I love it.
Yes, even down to the dress. It's blue and yellow with butterflies, which represents the colours and symbol of Down syndrome awareness.
And we've seen Mattel release athlete Barbies in recent times, including Aussie Paralympian Madeline de Rosario in 2020, which is a fantastic thing. Congratulations to them. Well, that's all we've got time for today.
Check out myself and Gerald Quigley on House of Wellness Radio every Sunday.
And thanks as always to our great friends at Chemist Warehouse. We'll see you next time.